Office of the Attorney General here in Switzerland come into the building. They questioned Sepp Blatter for a number of hours. Now, big questions about his future, big questions about the future for the governing body itself. Sepp Blatter remains today as the head of world football. He hasn't been suspended. It is a very difficult task indeed for that to happen. There are no powers within the executive committee itself to do that. It would need to come from the ethics committee of FIFA. Now, given that it is a criminal investigation, charges have not yet been laid. My understanding is that he will not be suspended and he will remain in charge. That will be galling, frankly, to some people, given that people want to see the buck stop somewhere, for Sepp Blatter to take some responsibility about FIFA's integrity and reputation. It'll be fascinating to see in the days ahead exactly what he decides to do.
Indeed, and of course we cannot prejudge anything involving Mr. Blatter, but when you look at what happened to Volkswagen, within a couple of days the boss says, look, it's a big scandal, I didn't do anything wrong, but I've got to leave anyway. That's the normal way, actually, big corporations, businesses and organisations deal with it. It is not the way that FIFA has ever dealt with this.
No, exactly. You know, I sat down with Sepp Blatter for an interview last month, and I put a similar point to him, that in any other organisation, be it a not-for-profit or be it a big corporation, he would have been shown the door by shareholders or by those with a responsibility to look after the integrity of that organisation. He dismissed that and said that FIFA itself was not institutionally corrupt, that he was an innocent man, he had nothing to worry about. And that is how Sepp Blatter sees the situation. He sees it as problems outside of FIFA. He's determined to carry on, it seems, given the events of yesterday and given that he is now facing those criminal proceedings. Again, we need to see and hear from him about what his intentions are. But as it stands, it does appear that he does want to continue, but despite the fact that there will be many, certainly within this organisation and within the wider world of football, who think that enough is enough.
Richard, thanks very much. Richard Conway there at FIFA. Now, UKIP's only MP has warned the party that all its work will count for nothing if it loses the EU referendum. Addressing the party conference a short while ago, Douglas Carswell told delegates they had to make unrelentingly optimistic and upbeat case for Britain leaving the EU. There are divisions in the party over the best way to campaign for an exit. Let's go to our political correspondent, Robin Brandt, who's at the conference in Doncaster for us now. Robin.
Well, Gavin, it's day 2 here at the racecourse in Doncaster, a beautiful day. It's pretty much Douglas Carswell Day, really, because he gave a speech this morning at 10 o'clock. And, of course, this is a man of huge significance to the UK Independence Party, because they had hoped to have many more MPs in the general election in May. That didn't happen. Douglas Carswell in Clacton and Essex is UKIP's only MP, a hugely important figure for the party. And his theme in the speech was optimism. He wants UKIP to radiate optimism in the up-and-coming referendum campaign. He's with me here now.
Hi.
Is UKIP an optimistic party? Is Nigel Farage an optimistic campaigner?
Absolutely. UKIP has managed to make a huge breakthrough because it offers not just acknowledgement of what people are concerned about, but real credible change. Change on Europe, change on immigration policy, but also on a whole range of other areas where we perhaps not yet developed policy. We're developing a credible alternative to make things better.
Optimism often sits alongside positivity as well. In the past, some have expressed concerns about Nigel Farage being a bit too much of an angry man when it comes to migration, when it comes to the campaigning style during the referendum. I mean, do you fear that perhaps Nigel needs to be more positive, more optimistic, less angry in his style?
The really, really important thing here is the referendum. That is, you know, people here at the UKIP conference have spent 20 years campaigning for this referendum. What's really important is that we work with other people in other parties. You know, I don't just have a residual loyalty to Eurosceptics and the Conservative Party. I have a newfound loyalty to Eurosceptics right across the political spectrum who want to leave the European Union. And by being generous and optimistic, we can reach out and build a winning coalition. If we do that, we'll be free from the EU. If we don't, we won't.
Now, you said in your speech, and this referendum is the raison d'etre for the UK Independence Party and many Eurosceptics like yourself, you said if you don't win, whenever it is, then all the efforts will be worthless. I mean, if you don't win, is that the end for UKIP?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn has come along and taken the Labour Party.
What about UKIP, not Jeremy Corbyn?
He's created a huge amount of space here. There are lots of people in constituencies like Doncaster who've traditionally voted Labour, who are fed up with the Labour Party, who frankly will see Corbyn as unelectable, who I think UKIP can appeal to. And I think there are going to be elections in Wales and in London next year, traditionally Labour's backyard, where I think UKIP can make some very significant gains. And I think that means that UKIP has a whole new lease of life. But we're only going to manage to displace the Labour Party if we have real, credible, optimistic policies, and we show that our values are in tune with those of the British people. We've got to be a generous party, a party for all Britons, first and second generation, as much as every other. We've got to be a party that is prepared to recognise, yes, there are shortcomings in this country, things that make us really frustrated, but we must never blame political outsiders for the failings of political insiders.
Worthless, but life goes on for UKIP, is what you're saying.
There are lots of things about this country that need fixing. Our relationship with Europe is only part of it. We've got a corporatist banking system that needs fixing, an energy cartel that needs breaking. We need political reform too. Europe's just part of it.
OK. Can I just quickly ask you about some comments yesterday by Aaron Banks? He's a very important man to this party. He's a UKIP donor, given £1 million in the past, bankrolling part of the Leave.eu campaign. He made some rather distasteful comments about you, saying you thought you were autistic, had a mental illness. I mean, what did you think about that?
Look, politics can be a slightly rough trade. Sometimes you have to take what people say about you on the chin. Fortunately, I've got quite a big chin, and I can take it in my stride. It's not the end of the world. People sometimes say these things. What's important is that UKIP is not committed to any one campaign. UKIP's position very clearly...
Well, they are now, though, aren't they?
UKIP's position very clearly... UKIP's position is very clear. We will work with anyone who stands a good chance of getting designation. Now, we're here at a racecourse.
But you are committed to one campaign. I mean, Nigel committed the party to Leave.eu yesterday.
UKIP is very clearly open to working with anyone who gets designation. We're here at a racecourse. It would be daft before a race to put all your money in a two-horse race on one horse. Imagine if we were to work exclusively with one group and not the other, and the Electoral Commission was to give designation to the group that we weren't working with. We would have painted ourselves into a corner, and I think everyone in UKIP can see that and realise that that would be a mistake.
Okay,
we're open to working with everyone.
Just quickly and finally, the party's just selected its candidate for the London mayoral elections next year. It's Peter Whittle. It's not Suzanne Evans. Some had thought she's deputy chairwoman. She wrote the manifesto, very prominent figure. She wasn't selected. Some were surprised. What's wrong with Suzanne Evans?
Look, I'm not involved in these things. I think both Peter and Suzanne are fantastic. I think both of them will get a very high profile, and both of them represent a face of UKIP that we need to see more of. And I think it's incredibly encouraging that we've got such good candidates selected, and I'm looking forward to working with them.
All right, Douglas Carswell, UKIP's only MP for Clacton and Essex. Thanks very much. Interesting there to hear him say, despite Nigel Farage nailing the flag of this party to the mast of this new campaign to leave the EU called Leave.eu yesterday, that Mr. Carswell believes that for the time being, this party is not committed to just one campaign and will continue, as he sees it, to work with anyone.
Robin, thanks very much. And from one great sports venue, Doncaster Racecourse, to another, Twickenham. Here is Mike Bushell with the sports news. Mike.
Yes, thanks, Gavin. Good afternoon. And one of the biggest days this stadium has seen in a long, long time. They don't come much bigger in normal times than England against Wales, but when it's in a World Cup pool match, when so much rides on the outcome, well, it really is one of the biggest group matches of all time. And you've got countries like China and Germany tuning in on TV for the first time. And you've got Australia in the same group as well. So realistically, whoever loses this evening will most likely have to beat Australia in their next games to have a chance of getting through to the knockout phase. The bars and the hotels around here starting to fill up. Met some Welsh fans a few minutes ago. They're really confident, you know, that Wales can produce an upset like they did here in 2012 when Scott Williams was the inspiration. They kept it tight until the final few moments, and he got an interception try and raced through to win the game for Wales. They're hoping they can do that again, but England have won their last 8 matches at Twickenham. It's made even more interesting because of the lineups. A lot of changes, forced by injury, some of them, but on England's point, a few of them because of tactics. And so England, well, they've replaced the injured Jonathan Joseph with Sam Burgess, who has only played just over 100 minutes of international rugby since switching from rugby league. Now, also, Stuart Lancaster has baffled some by dropping George Ford to the bench and replacing him with Owen Farrell at number 10. But the boss says that's all about stopping Wales playing to their strengths.
Wales' strength is a lot based on their physicality, and they've got a very physical back row, very physical backs, you know, the likes of George North, etc. But equally, you know, we've got our own tools in our armoury as well. You know, when you look at the side we've picked, there's not many weaknesses in there. You've got a quality bench who can come on in the forwards. You've got guys who can come off the bench as they're getting tired and create things. And I think from our point of view, it's a strong team to take on what's going to be a very strong Welsh team.
As for Wales, they have lost several key players, including Lee Halfpenny, but in their lineup they have plenty of players who were part of that side that won here in 2012, like matchwinner Scott Williams, and they certainly won't be fazed by all the talk of injuries because the occasion is so huge.
This is, you know, for us as a nation, the biggest game that we've had for a long, long time, and you know, up against the old enemy. But you've got to be excited about it. But we've got, as a team, we've got a huge amount of respect for England, and I know the players, you know, personally get on well with the English players, and you know, as we do as the management as well. But we're all trying to beat each other.
I've got some news coming in from the Scotland camp. The back row, John Hendry, has been ruled out. This is for tomorrow's match against the USA, taking place at Ellen Road in Leeds. He's failed a head injury assessment. He basically took a knock during Wednesday's win over Japan. So he's replaced by Ryan Wilson. And Ross Ford is also promoted to the starting 15. Away from the Rugby World Cup to Formula One, and if you don't want to know who's on pole for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix, which is live on the BBC, please look away, turn the sound down now. Maybe you're planning to watch highlights later on the BBC, because I can tell you that the Mercedes car of Nico Rosberg took pole position, but the celebrations are somewhat muted after the final session of qualifying ended prematurely. This was after a spectacular crash, as Nick Parrott now reports.
Oh, big shunt, and it's the Red Bull Kvyat has crashed.
For a moment, heart skipped a few beats. The concern understandable. Fortunately, fears for Danny Kvyat's safety were over as quickly as his crash.
Are you okay, Danny?
Yeah, I'm okay.
What happened there, mate?
I clipped the grass on the entry.
It was a mistake that will cost his team time and money to fix, and the red flags that followed ended qualifying early, costing Lewis Hamilton the chance of grabbing pole. After struggling in Singapore, Mercedes were back on song at Suzuka. Nico Rosberg had set the time to beat with his first run in the final part of qualifying. The German had previously only come out on top on a Saturday once this season, but his British rival blew his first and what turned out to be only chance to beat him. While Rosberg was pleased to edge out his rival, Hamilton will remember that last year he started from second and went on to win. Nick Parrott, BBC News.
So all set for tomorrow morning. Just a reminder, in 15 minutes it's Tottenham against Manchester City in the day's early Premier League kick-off. But that's all the sport for now, Gavin.
Mike, thanks very much. Let's have a look at the weather now across the newsroom with Chris Fox.
Thanks a lot, Gavin. Well, we're looking at a dry, settled spell of weather this weekend and into early next week as well, thanks to an area of high pressure. But there will be some subtle variations of weather day to day. At the moment, we've got a lot of cloud across Northern Ireland, Northern England and Scotland, with almost clear blue skies further south for the rest of England and for Wales as well. In the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm, 18 degrees. That cloud be nibbled away across Northern England and Northern Ireland through the afternoon, but will probably stick around all afternoon in most of Scotland. Then overnight tonight, the cloud eventually will begin to break up in Scotland. The sky's clearing then across the UK, and that's going to allow temperatures to take a bit of a dive. Not desperately cold in the towns and cities, but head into the countryside. We're not far off of frost in parts of the Midlands, Wales, central southern England as well. So for Sunday, a chilly start to the morning, that's for sure, but clear blue skies will greet you. So a much brighter day with much more sunshine for Northern Ireland and Scotland compared with today, but a little bit more of a breeze blowing across southern coastal counties of England.
So,